where are we at? Let's take a quick look before I bring on my next guest here. Whoa, heard that. There we go. We're at 95. Okay, let's get to 100 likes before our next guest. I'm going to bring him on right now. We are... Okay, we're there. Thank you very much, everyone. See, that was fun. Okay, let's bring on Gerald Commissiong. He's the CEO of Todos Medical. Guys, we got to pivot away from, the wine was fun, but this next one is a lot more serious, right? We're talking a company that is operating in the nexus of COVID and the pandemic and testing. So let's ask Gerald all about that. Gerald Commissiong, CEO of Todos Medical. Gerald, how are we doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Was my tease accurate? Is that a fair assessment? You're sort of operating at the nexus of this pandemic?
Absolutely. I'd say okay. Test, and then treat.
Okay. So tell us about Todos, what you've got, what you're working on, and then I have many, many questions.
Yeah, sure. So in the pandemic, the main thing now that people would be focused on is our oral antiviral that we're calling Tolovir. It's got the exact same mechanism of action as the Pfizer compound, Paxlovid, that just confirmed data in terms of their clinical readout in preventing hospitalization and death, except our Tolovir also has an additional mechanism of anti-cytokine so that it can help not only in the outpatient setting, but also in the hospital setting, so treating severe and critical. We have a phase 2 clinical trial that we are now preparing to read out on later this month in hospitalized patients. Endpoints will include death. Endpoints will include reduction of time in the hospital. They'll also include some biomarkers related to disease severity. So really, we're looking to see if we can really solve the COVID problem, make it a lot less scary, and take death off the table.
All right. So there's a lot of information there. I guess we'll start with this. How does all of that stand now that we've got several variants out there? We've got Delta, we of course have Omicron. How does the variants, how does that put a spin on what you're working on? Because we just had the news this morning out of Pfizer that their oral treatment is pretty effective at reducing hospitalization. So how does the variant sort of affect that?
Well, look, for us, the wonderful thing for us is just like Pfizer confirmed, it looks like our mechanism is variant independent. So it holds up against Delta, holds up against Omicron. That's important. What is, when you look at the data and what they've presented recently, they showed a reduction of hospitalization and death. That wasn't really against Omicron. They also showed a little bit more data that showed that their drug is still effective against Omicron, but a little bit less effective. And so what that means in the real world is it's wonderful that that 3CL protease inhibitor is going to be in the market, but a higher percentage of those people will escape past that potential to get into the hospital and will need to be treated. So, unfortunately, that is the case. But, the good thing is we are developing a product that will also do what they do, as well as help with what's driving the hospitalization, hopefully get them out of the hospital sooner. The other thing that's critical when you look at that is ours is an all-natural formulation, whereas theirs also has an HIV drug that you have to take alongside their Paxlovid in order to keep it in the system for longer. So for us, we don't have that issue as it relates to potential drug-drug interaction. So it's wonderful to see their data, but doesn't mean that there's not a very, very, very important place for Tolovir.
And so the data this morning was a phase 2 and phase 3 study results. Where are you? Where was Todos in that trial regulatory process?
So we're in a phase 2 trial in hospitalized patients right now. So that's exactly where we are. Okay. We are preparing to read out on it. On the interim data, I expect that there's not going to be a next phase of the trial. They're going to stop it, and we're going to move towards a pivotal. And then the question is going to be, how desperate is the situation in each country, whether they need the drug now or whether they feel they can wait if hospitalizations are going up, as we're starting to see in South Africa, as we're starting to hear in Europe, and as we're starting to see here in the US. If the situation is desperate enough, this is a very, very safe product. It's a natural product. A version of this has been used by thousands of people at this point. and with no, significant side effects at all associated with it. So we think that, there's going to be some jurisdictions where we can get an EUA based on this data. We think that there will be other jurisdictions we'll get based on an interim phase 3 data, and then there'll be some that we'll get after the full phase 3. It's all just going to depend on what the need is. But the most important thing is that this is very safe. So the downside of using this product is extremely limited.
I'm going to presume what we're really talking about here is people who are not vaccinated, right? Because those are the ones that would theoretically have the more severe cases and would need treatment and would need your drug.
Well, for us, it doesn't matter. Our trial included both vaccinated and unvaccinated.
It did. And was there a difference there?
Well, we'll see. So I can't comment on that yet. We got to wait until the readout. But
Fair.
The mechanism, you heard Fauci talk about the Pfizer drug and say, yes, the trial was only in the unvaccinated, but we expect it to work in the vaccinated because of the mechanism. There's no reason to believe it's not going to work in both. And the reality is with Omicron is there's going to be a lot more vaccinated people that end up in the hospital. It's just the reality because of breakthrough infections. They're going higher and they're only going to continue to go higher. The booster will help, but it's going to be short-lived. And so you're going to be in a situation, especially if you're not testing for your neutralizing antibodies, where a lot of people don't know that they don't have the optimal protection, as Fauci called it, of the boost. You don't know how long that boost lasts. And we're only going to find out in real time once a lot of people get infected. So the reality is people are going to get infected. You want to treat them. Many of those people, because of testing delays, they won't get their result. With the Pfizer, drug, it's all going to be by prescription only. Of course, it's not an OTC product. As a result of that, you got to wait till you get your result. If the turnaround time for your test is 2, 3, 4 days, as we're starting to see turnaround times go up, you may miss the window in which you can be prescribed that drug. And so that's a big problem that we have to address. Testing is going to make it harder. And that's why, the window that our drug can treat is much larger. And that's why we think it's important.
And I apologize if you already said this, but it's important and I don't want to miss it. As far as timeline, when is the timeline for, the end of the data readout on the phase 2 or anything like that?
Phase 2 data we expect will be done this year. So we're, feverishly working. Okay. The trial has been paused. We brought on a special advisor to really make sure all the data is buttoned up and prepared for submission to the FDA when we go in for our pre-IND and IND meetings. We've already engaged an advisor in Europe who's helping us in Germany. We have a partner in Greece who's helping us in Greece. And of course, we are already in Israel and in discussions with the groups there and have some very key people, on our side because it's been used in quite a bit in Israel and people have confidence in the data and most importantly, confidence in Dr. Arad, given the background she has in developing 3CL protease biology and inhibitors. So we've been putting together slowly, carefully, all the pieces as other players have fallen off. Obviously, our prospects have grown. We thought the biology of 3CL protease was the right target, last year, and we're lucky to be proven right in the clinic by Pfizer. And we think our observational data shows that we can have an impact in the hospital, and we think that we'll confirm it, with this control data. And then we really think sky's the limit. Next thing is really making sure we can manufacture the quantity. And there, we've done a lot of work because we have a different product, which is a OTC product. There are no claims for it. It's not, I can't say that it diagnoses, treats, prevents, or cures SARS-CoV-2 or COVID in any way, but we have a supplement 3CL protease inhibitor version called Tolovid on the market. And so, we've learned a lot with that. And we think that now that we really understand the dosing, the Tolovir program is really set to shine. So
we're going to keep going on this, but before I forget, I just want to clarify: is Tolovir, is that the main story here? Are there other things in the pipeline, or is that it? Because we're going to spend the rest of the time on Tolovir, so I want to make sure we're not missing what other things you have in the pipeline.
Yeah, no, we have a huge pipeline. Okay. So beyond Tolovir, obviously I mentioned we have Tolovid, the dietary supplement version. We have Tolovid Daily, which is a 3CL protease inhibitor you can just have in your system on a daily basis. We think we have some data shows that makes sense, that it really does support your immune system. And on the immune aspects, and we'll talk about that, when that data is published. The Tolovid product, obviously, we think it's something that you just want to have in your medicine cabinet if you want that maximum 3-cell protease protection for whatever reason. And then we have really our diagnostics pipeline, which, there we have on the 3-cell protease side, we think we've developed a mass technology that can screen rapidly large quantities of people for COVID around 3-cell protease, and you can identify people earlier than PCR, and that will actually help the oral antivirals be successful because you'll find people early and intervene early. And then that's one project that's going to be big. We're going to be working on in the 3CL Sciences sub that includes Tolovit and Tolovir and now Tolotest. And then we have our proprietary cancer diagnostics and Alzheimer's diagnostics. We have the Videssa breast cancer test. We already have well over 1,000 prospectively collected samples. We showed over 92% sensitivity and over 98% negative predictive value with that test. Our chief scientist, Dr. Jorge Leon, is preparing for a 750 patient clinical trial in Mexico that we expect to launch very soon to revalidate. And then we'll be launching that test in the US towards the end of 2022, and then a full real launch with reimbursement in early 2023. So that's a very big story. Obviously, we have a blood test for Alzheimer's disease. We have data that's going to read out in the first half of next year. That trial started actually in 2016. So it's a 5-year study that really, will drive home the value of early detection and how that early detection correlates with other aspects of disease, so we can find it early. And then, we have our COVID testing. And with COVID testing, we're ramping up dramatically. In fact, we've got to hire extensively. We're ramping up dramatically our testing at the lab now with new contracts from some of our existing clients and expanding contracts from other clients. And then the CPAS neutralizing antibody test. And that really, when you hear Fauci and others talk about the booster, really everything is about neutralizing antibodies. Every single decision that is being made is about neutralizing antibodies. Whether or not you have protection against Omicron is all about neutralizing antibodies. So knowing your neutralizing antibody status, if you're going to be boosting, is critical to figure out when you're going to have to boost again. In Israel, they're talking about a 4th shot. Fauci just talked about a 4th shot a couple of days ago. So we know that 4th shot is coming if you want that optimal protection. You need to know your titers. You need to know when they go down so that you can protect yourself. So those are the other stories. And so it's a revenue story because we're generating significant revenue in that lab.
There's a good question that I was actually going to ask anyway from Brian McCann in the chat. Why haven't we heard more about Tolovir?
We're small. Todos is a small company. Tolovir is a natural product. Obviously, the entire pharma industry has largely tried to go away from natural products. We see, CBD and other industries starting to grow, and they're having their own challenges in terms of differentiating because they're all the same, with those products. So, natural products, typically have gotten kind of the short end of the stick, but they're, I think, making a big comeback. We see that CBD, obviously, we see the psychedelic industry. There's a lot of natural products there. So investors are interested in it, and the market needs natural products to come back. So I think that's one reason. And we're a penny stock. We're a penny stock, and we're on the OTC. And generally, there's a lot of skepticism, but we don't intend, to remain here for long. We're preparing to get up on NASDAQ after we get our trial data readout, and we really get ready to launch our product and expand the launch of our Tolovit product. Based on the tremendous increase in interest of 3-cell protease inhibitors, given what's going on out there.
So obviously, we've established that you can't speak to the phase 2 data that you haven't released yet. But speaking of the earlier data, what can you say about the risk profile of Tolovir?
So when we talk about the observational data, again, so it's a similar size data set. We saw a 100% reduction in death. We saw a 25% reduction in time in the hospital, which obviously would be longer if people on the control arm didn't pass. We saw a dramatic improvement in biomarkers, specifically CRP. And so, we saw pretty much everything that you would want to see. Nobody died. People got better faster. They felt better, and they got out of the hospital. So that's what you want in a treatment for COVID in the hospital. Obviously, the next stages is really confirming, and that's what we're doing now, the dosing, confirming the extent of the difference in a placebo-controlled trial in the biomarkers, and looking at new biomarkers. So, some of these IgM, IgA, IgG, and our CPAS neutralizing antibody, we're going to be looking at all of those. We're also going to be looking at the interleukins, so interleukin 6, as well as several others, and other markers of disease severity, because it's becoming clearer and clearer. If you have an impact on those biomarkers, it correlates really well with clinical outcomes. And so we think that could be very, very powerful, even if the small cohort of our study, if you have really strong biomarker response, that can be very convincing, given the safety profile.
Okay, so we have Tolovir phase 2 readout data coming, you said end of year. And then the next step there would be a phase 3 and onward, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah. So the next step would be we're planning to have a pre-IND meeting with the FDA so we can get a U.S. IND, because all of our stuff is done in Israel so far on Tolovir, and now we intend to go global. So, if you look on the clinical trial sites in the U.S., you won't find Tolovir, but you will find it on the Ministry of Health in Israel. We intend to be expanding globally, so we're already looking at sites, obviously in Greece, given we have a partnership there. We're looking in South Africa, so we have conversations ongoing, given the hospitalization rise there, although there will be a lot of competition for patients. But in Europe, in the US, we think, obviously, we heard about the first Omicron death yesterday in the UK. And unfortunately, we don't think it's going to be the last. So we do think that, there's a lot of opportunity to expand our footprint. But most importantly, is just continuing to get the data and submit it to the authorities. We're going to continue to do that in the phase 2-3 and look at partnerships, because as we get more data, as we build out that next gen mechanism-based design, next generation Tolovir, which will be a chemical pill, but really structured on the natural product. So we think it'll have a better safety profile. We think that it could become a very attractive play for pharma. So we have a lot in the pipeline.
Good question from K-Star. How much will Tolovir's success be based on Pfizer's success?
I think, initially quite a bit. When you talk to regulatory agencies, obviously drugs in the same class is very important. If you see side effects with a drug in the class, if you come in with a similar drug, they're going to ask about the side effects. That's a natural thing. So, the fact that Pfizer's coming out, we haven't heard anything about significant side effects. And even if they did potentially have significant side effects, that may be related to the HIV drug in their formulation, as opposed to the 3CL protease inhibitor, because 3CL is only in the nidovirus subcategory of coronaviruses. So we think that's going to give us a huge leg up when we have those conversations. And obviously the safety profile that we have, we're very excited about our prospects. So what's good for Pfizer is good for Todos. And we think that, we can help buttress any challenges that they have in terms of efficacy, because we can treat those patients who don't respond to the Paxlovid.
All right, there's a lot of questions. Yeah, guys, we're not getting to all these questions, just so we're clear. We can do like one or two more. Nick H asked, how much root is available to make Tolovir?
We've been working on supply chain, and we're very confident we can manufacture the tens of millions of doses, which should be able to meet the demand for the hospital market. That's one of the reasons we went after the hospital market and not the general market, because Pfizer is going to have to manufacture hundreds of millions of pills, and they will carpet bomb the market, and that's for sure going to happen. But we know, because of the testing challenges worldwide, we know just because of the biology and some of the challenges with the variants, people are going to escape that frontline Pfizer therapy, and we'll be there. We'll be there to be able to help treat those patients. So we think we can definitely treat that hospitalized market, and then we're going to expand into kind of the people that either didn't get it and end up moderate, or the people who got it too late and end up moderate. That's the next one. And then importantly, pediatrics. No one's talking about kids, and obviously no one's going to give an HIV drug to kids. We think that that's an area where we can have a significant impact, because it is a natural product and does have such a strong safety profile. And finally, we think that there could be some effect in long COVID. We think there's some reasons to believe that could be the case. So we're going to evaluate how best to go after that, and maybe some subset of long COVID to target, and then look for other ways to help long COVID patients potentially down the line with other technologies that we have access to. So we think that the supply is not going to be a problem for the population we're going after.
All right, guys, where were all these questions like 10, 15 minutes ago? We're out of time. Gerald Commissiong is the CEO of Todos Medical. A lot of interesting debate going on in the chat. Gerald, good luck. Seriously, we're rooting for you, because if this can work, then it's good for humanity. So thanks for coming on All Access today, and I look forward to seeing the results of the phase 2.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right.